Well, welcome to the 700 Club. U.S. officials filed criminal charges against the leader of Hamas. They did that back in February, and that indictment just got unsealed. Attorney General Merrick Garland called it the deadliest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust.
Merrick listed crimes of murdering children and the elderly, kidnapping, sexual violence against women, and more, all done in an attempt to destroy the state of Israel. CBN's Julie Stahl reports.
The U.S. filed criminal charges against top Hamas leaders, signaling that America is no longer just negotiating with terrorists for a ceasefire deal, but is now out to punish them for their murderous crimes.
Those defendants, armed with weapons, political support, and funding from the government of Iran and support from Hezbollah, have led Hamas's efforts to destroy the state of Israel and murder civilians in support of that aim.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland described in graphic detail Hamas's crimes on October 7th.
They murdered entire families. They murdered the elderly, and they murdered young children. They weaponized sexual violence against women. On October 7th, Hamas terrorists murdered nearly 1,200 people, including over 40 Americans, and kidnapped hundreds of civilians. They perpetrated the deadliest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust.
Meanwhile, the U.S. says it's more urgent than ever to put together a ceasefire deal both sides will accept.
We are working day and night to try to get an agreement over the line because we believe an agreement is manifestly in the interests of all the parties involved.
The latest sticking point, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's insistence that Israeli troops remain on the Philadelphia corridor along Gaza's border with Egypt. Without an IDF presence, Hamas could resume smuggling in weapons and quickly rearm itself and once again threaten Israel.
Philadelphia corridor. This is the oxygen and armament of Hamas. This corridor is different from other corridors, from other places. It is central. It determines our entire future.
Leading opposition Knesset member Benny Gantz accuses Netanyahu of overstating the importance of staying in the Philadelphia corridor.
The Philadelphia corridor is an operational challenge, but is not an existential threat to the state of Israel. Iran's axis of evil is the existential threat to us.
The issue causing an uproar in segments of Israeli society between those who demand an immediate hostage deal and those who believe defeating Hamas is the answer. According to the proposed deal, the first phase would be a 6-week ceasefire requiring Israel to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor and the release of Palestinian terrorists in exchange for 20 hostages in Gaza. Of the remaining 101 hostages, about one-third are believed to be dead. Israel is supposed to be able to re-enter the area if it needs to, but Middle East expert Caroline Glick says the Americans will prevent it.
The fact is that the political realities dictate an American policy of not supporting a resumption of hostilities by Israel if Hamas breaks its word, which of course it will because it's Hamas.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And it's unfortunate we're living in those political realities. The irony of the corridor being called the Philadelphia corridor, that means brotherly love. And if there's anything other than brotherly love, it's been what's flowing across the tunnels underneath that corridor. That's the main way that Hamas has been supplied with all of these weapons. I would ask the Department of Justice to look at expanding their indictment. They've indicted the leaders. They did it back in February. It's just recently that they unsealed it to let everyone know exactly what they're trying to do. But they should follow the money. How in the world did they get enough funding to purchase this quantity of weapons? And you've got to look at Qatar. You've got to look at the senior leadership that lives there in luxury. You have to look at why are so many leaders of Hamas now billionaires? Where is all that money coming from? And I'll remind every American, a lot of that money is coming from us because they're diverting the humanitarian aid that we have supplied so generously through UNRWA and other methods. that they've diverted it into their own pockets. They've also quite clearly diverted it into these weapons. So where's the indictment supposed to land? Well, how about some of the UNRWA officials that turned the other way when it was quite obvious that they were supporting Hamas? How about Qatar? I know there's a military base there and there's some strategic value to it, but what's the strategic value where they're the funding of this war? If we're looking for peace in the Middle East, you have to look at that funding and you have to say, let's let the Department of Justice go after that. Well, in other news, federal officials say a Chinese spy influenced the highest levels of the New York State government. Ephraim Graham has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, the former top aide to 2 New York governors, is facing charges of secretly helping the communist government and receiving millions of dollars in cash and perks in return. George Thomas has the details.
Linda's son walked out of a Brooklyn federal court charged with acting as an undercover agent for Beijing. The feds say the 41-year-old Chinese-born U.S. citizen used her position as former aide to New York governors Kathy Hochul and Andrew Cuomo to directly help the Chinese government.
She allegedly used her government rules to quietly push China's agenda.
The 65-page indictment has Sun facing 10 criminal counts, including money laundering, visa fraud, trying to block New York State officials from meeting with Taiwanese government representatives, and changing some of the state's policy messaging to benefit the communist government's priorities.
These actions reportedly gave China influence in New York's government for nearly a decade.
Governor Hochul expressed outrage at the betrayal and said Sun was fired the moment misconduct was discovered. In exchange for acting as a foreign agent, Sun and her husband, Chris Hu, charged as a co-conspirator, received millions of dollars in Chinese kickbacks, allowing the couple to splurge on multi-million-dollar homes in Hawaii and Long Island, buy a 2024 Ferrari, enjoy travel benefits, tickets to events, and on 16 different occasions, reportedly got Nanjing-style salted ducks specially prepared by the personal chef of a Chinese government official. Breon Peace, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, said Sun wielded her position of influence among executives to covertly promote PRC and CCP agendas, directly threatening our country's national security. Prosecutors say Sun actively concealed that she took actions at the order, request, or direction of CCP officials.
This case is part of a broader effort by the Justice Department to uncover secret Chinese agents in the U.S.
The couple pleaded not guilty to all 10 charges in federal court Tuesday afternoon. George Thomas, CBN News.
A small-time crime in a Virginia neighborhood sparked a big community response after a man robbed their children's lemonade stand. The Caldwell family turned it into a powerful message of faith and forgiveness. CBN's Brody Carter has more.
During the dog days of summer, 10-year-old Rebecca Caldwell and her 8-year-old brother Joshua were selling lemonade in front of their home in Chesapeake, Virginia, when a stranger seemingly stopped to buy a drink.
Seemed super nice.
That turned out not to be the case when the man took their $40 in earnings and sped off.
Yeah, I was really upset, and my husband was on the phone with me when it happened.
Home security footage shows the man approaching the stand and grabbing the money jar while their mother was inside. The robbery could have left the family disheartened, but instead they chose to focus on prayer and forgiveness.
Why did you pray for the man who stole your money?
Because I wanted him to become a Christian.
Rebecca and Joshua, along with their parents, quickly forgave the man who stole from them.
I just think it's better to forgive than just to always be mad at the guy, because then you're just always going to think back on that day and be like, oh, I'm so mad at that guy.
When life handed these 2 young entrepreneurs a sour situation, the community really stepped up to help and gave them something that was much sweeter.
This has been incredible, mind-blowing. I mean, it's just so overwhelming.
A week after the robbery, the community came together and helped the Caldwell family raise more than $6,200 in donations at a special lemonade event.
All the people were really nice, and I got to ride on one of their motorcycles.
Immediately, there was so much support coming out of it that it's like, you know, we're blessed by this whole thing. I mean, yeah, something bad happened for a moment, but ever since that moment, it's just been blessing after blessing.
As news stations spread their story across the country, the Caldwells are using their time in the spotlight to share the gospel.
We've talked a lot about forgiveness in our interviews. Some people have asked why we choose to forgive.
Taping this heartfelt message to the lemonade stand, the Caldwells pointed those who stopped by toward the cross, turning their experience into a powerful testimony.
If God can do all this through a lemonade stand, he can do it through anything. He can do the impossible. We just want people to know that God forgave us, and so we can forgive other people.
Rebecca and Joshua, the youngest of 7 siblings, plan to use some of the funds raised for their oldest sister's missionary trip to Asia, with the rest going towards some new toys, like a 4-wheeler and a dirt bike. The Caldwell story is a powerful reminder that when life hands you lemons, you can turn them into lemonade, and with faith and love, you might just find yourself getting something far sweeter. Brody Carter, CBN News.
The suspect is facing a felony charge of grand larceny, but oh, the lesson of forgiveness we can all take from those children. Gordon?
It's such a wonderful lesson of forgiveness. And full disclosure, Ryan Caldwell works right here at CBN. So this happened right here in our backyard. I remember the first time I saw it, I was, you've got to be kidding me. You're robbing from children at a lemonade stand? What kind of evil person are you to do that, to take their money jar and just drive away? But it's what a powerful lesson in forgiveness, and to hear the gospel from those same children, to say, I don't want to hold on to this. I don't want to look back at this and be mad at this guy the rest of my life. I want to forgive him. And that's the fundamental message of the gospel. Jesus, as he's dying on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. In the middle of his torture, being nailed to a cross, he's forgiving the very people that are killing him. It's an amazing lesson. It is the gospel. And when we forgive others, our Heavenly Father will absolutely forgive us. And then he'll come in with such an abundance. What you just saw, a lesson in forgiveness, walk in it and walk in it every day.